again for joining us. I'm politics reporter Robert-rizzuto, and we are here with this edition of the 2014 Campaign Roundtable Series. And we are joined by the Democrats running to represent the 10th Hampden District in the Massachusetts legislature. Again, welcome everybody, and thank you. We are going to talk about the opioid epidemic that's plagued the Northeast United States and Massachusetts and Western Mass particularly. The state has allocated additional resources toward treatment with legislation, while some of our federal elected officials are working to not only increase funding options, but to proliferate the availability of Narcan, which has been described by first responders as a life-saving miracle drug. It can reverse a heroin overdose with treatment right away. So they're working to get that in more folks' hands. But as we look at this issue, what do you think the Commonwealth's place in tackling this problem is? And just to clarify, the opioid epidemic reflecting heroin overdoses as well as opioid-based prescription drugs, seeing a problem across the board with these. We just want to know where you stand as far as where do you see the legislature fitting into potential solutions to this. Mr. Edwards, we can start with you on this topic.
Well, obviously, there's a misconception, I think, in my opinion, that this is something new. My political or mental consciousness related to this issue goes all the way back to the mid-'60s. And I know that we're now thinking that this somehow is a great revelation that Agawam has a heroin problem. All people had to do was go stand down on Mill Street near the clinic where the people go in to get the alternative medicines, or they could just stand in some of the neighborhoods where I live at and see who is trafficking there, and they could recognize that those people are probably from another neighborhood. The role of government in the state is to recognize that they've been part of the problem from the very beginning. The ideal that people need to self-medicate is not new. Drugs do work. They give people the respite from the realities of their lives. And if we as a society don't start to recognize, that a man who has a job and that has self-esteem, or a woman that has self-esteem, generally can maneuver life's landscape a little bit better. Obviously, the insurance companies and the doctors most recently have gotten to the point where, in my opinion, they've over-prescribed many of these drugs that have been the gateways. It used to be traditionally that our children at 9, 10, and 11 years old started with the gateway drug of alcohol, and that led to other types of drugs, and eventually when they had kind of worked their way up through the food chain, they have ended up with heroin. And now what we're seeing is that younger and younger people are getting involved with the opiates because of the prescriptions. So I think the government does have a role, because they're the regulators of what doctors prescribe, and they're supposed to be the regulators of what the insurance companies are supposed to provide. I think that we need to start looking at these things holistically and recognizing, that the recreational use of any drug, the first few times that you do it, is usually by choice or by curiosity. But once the 5th, 6th, 7th time comes about, then it becomes a physiological issue. And it's something where the craving and where the chemical makeup and its effect on your brain starts to take in, and then it's not your choice any longer. Mm-hmm. It's something that you need, and that need is so strong that it becomes your God. We as a society have to recognize the role of government. I believe that it was John Adams who said, if men were angels, we wouldn't need government. Well, we do need government, because there are people in the industry that create these drugs and who facilitate the access to opiates who are not interested in solving these problems. I'm a firm believer that if I look at society and I see issues not being solved, we need to recognize that we would be disrupting somebody's revenues if we did things differently. So for me, I applaud the state legislature in passing the legislation that they put forward. I think it's a step in the right direction, but there's so much more that needs to be done. I think there's a role for doctors who are overprescribing. I think there's a role for individuals to be responsible enough to recognize, and many people know that I tore the patella tendon off both my kneecaps, so I'm familiar with fentanyl, and I'm familiar with oxycodone, OxyContin, morphine. I've taken them all because of the situation that I was in, and I'm proud to tell you that I've gotten off of them as well. And even during the process of being on these opiates, I knew how important it was to maintain, one, my integrity, and two, my ability to comprehend and to be able to continue to contribute to my community. So I've actually, dealt with these issues personally. I have family members that have dealt with them. But the role of the government, and at least our state government, is to be the leaders on this issue and to recognize that the pharmaceutical companies make money off these things as well. The joke in my neighborhood many years ago was how many people live around us that have a pilot's license to be able to bring these drugs into the country. So we have to recognize there's a lot of revenues that are associated with these issues, and there are people who are not interested in seeing these problems solved. And as long as we have the attitude that it's okay in that zip code or in that particular neighborhood over there for this to occur, and we will tolerate it as long as it doesn't spill over into the more affluent communities. People in those affluent communities need to recognize they need to come back into Springfield, share their intellectual talent to solve these problems. Because since the invention of the beeper, we've been able to deliver our misery to your front door. So when you find your child laying on your bathroom floor and you don't have that Narcan, and when your child, regardless of the reason or the circumstances that lead to his addiction or to his overdose, it'll be your grief. Well, welcome to our neighborhood, because this is what's happening in our city. So come share in the solution, or stay in your comfort zone and think that this is something that only happens over there. We'll deliver our misery to you.
Thank you, Mr. Edwards. Carlos, the topic of opioid addiction, what do you see as the state government's role in this?
Yeah. Well, I think government's responsibility is to provide the resources necessary to make sure that the services and the tools necessary to protect somebody's life when faced with this situation is extremely important, and we will advocate for that. I think it's just a no-brainer. We could just not afford not to provide the resources for that. Drugs are impacting our community in such a negative way, and we have to realize that the insurance companies and the drug companies need to play a more active role, and we need to be more proactive in providing solutions, because they're making billions of dollars, and it's impacting our lives negatively. Now, I agree. We need to provide jobs and opportunity for folks, and that somehow will alleviate some of the issues that are facing particularly in our urban areas. But this issue is really impacting us in our suburb areas. So we will be an advocate for providing the resources, the tools, and the funding necessary to make sure that we have our emergency responders and our police departments have the adequate tools and resources to deal with this issue, as you mentioned in the question.
Gotcha. Thank you very much. Yvette, topic of opioid addiction, what is state government's role in addressing this?
I wanted to say thank you to Melvin. I totally agree with what he was saying about the opiate addiction. As a social worker, once again, as a DCF social worker, and as a mom who came from Puerto Rico, personally and professionally, I've experienced so many families who've had addiction problems. And I see how it affects our children, and it's heartbreaking. As somebody who has to go in the middle of the night as a hotline social worker, when they have to, revive a mother who just overdosed and the kids are right there, I'm the one that have to respond with, the ambulance and with the police, and it's heartbreaking, and it's heartbreaking to know, yeah, we saved her life for a minute, but what is it that we're gonna do afterwards? What are the resources available for her afterwards? Now we have her alive. Can she parent? Do we have the resources for her to be able to parent with her children and be able to take care of her addiction problems? Do we have those resources in the 10th Hampden District available, readily available for these families that are suffering from this addiction? I have to protect my children when they're like going down the street, and it is okay for them to inhale all the marijuana and all the they cross down like a pipe or a needle and all of that. That's like not acceptable, and we need to send a message that we need to take care of our children first, and we need to send a message that if you want to parent, we're going to take care of you, and these are the resources available to you. And and as a mother, if I have a child that we have that has the addiction problem, I want to make sure that the insurance company is going to help me with that they're not going to set limits and barriers, that you only have 5 days for treatment. 5 days, that's nothing. You know, we need to make sure that, you know, that everybody is on the table and is on the same page, that, you know, these folks need all the help that they can get, because it affects everybody around them. It affects the children, it affects the schools, it affects everybody. You know, understanding that children, by the time they're in middle school, they already know what drugs are. If not, maybe of them, you know, already tried a drug or another. And we want to make sure that we start by educating them. We got to reach out to our youth. We got to reach out to our parents. We got to make sure that we take away all the stigma that goes with mental health and with substance abuse, and we're going to tackle it, and we're gonna fight to make sure that we have a healthy and productive district. And we we definitely need jobs, but we definitely need all the resources that go with it, including childcare, including, you know, the programs that she can go and have that support and have that, you know, therapy, everything that she will need, she will need, to make sure that they live a healthy, productive life. And
education, as well as providing the resources for
definitely, and proactive. We got to be proactive, and there's no resources out there, you know, and if there are, they're limited in terms of how can we work in a proactive way to tackle this. And this is not new. We know this. You know, we gotta, you know, we're making it as if this is, you know, a brand new epidemic. It's been an epidemic since I started working for DCF 17 years ago. There's social workers. We got the answers. You know, we just got to reach out and get it done.
Gotcha. Everybody, very thoughtful answers. Thank you very much. We are running short on time here, so we're going to go right to our last question. Basically, we touched on this a little bit with some of your answers. We're reflecting on the fact that you're all running for the seat which is open now. Cheryl Coakley-Rivera held this for 15 years. She was the first Hispanic woman to hold this seat and to hold such a seat in the Massachusetts legislature. Just looking at the demographics of the 10th Hampden District, do you think that being a Latino or not being a Latino is an advantage or disadvantage in this race? And for this, Yvette, we can start with you.
Thank you. So I'm a immigrant, if you may, somebody that came from Puerto Rico escaping severe domestic violence. I landed in Boston in a homeless shelter. I was in a homeless shelter for about a year. And during that time, I obtained the resources to be able to get my GED in Spanish, to be able to start working on my English as a second language. And you know, my second child was born at the shelter. I ended up, you know, moving with subsidized housing. And after I left the shelter, the staff still helped me to go into college. So I did my associates. And then I went on and did my bachelor's, and I started working for the state as a social worker. And as a social worker, I've seen a lot of injustice, and I've seen how people are struggling, especially of Latino descendant. You know, beyond that, I came to Springfield in 2001, and I landed in the North End. I fell in love with the North End because it's part of my culture. I have there my food. I have there the old San Juan bakery, and I felt very comfortable in being able to listen to my music. And so being able to go next door and, you know, speak my language, you know, like I said, I fell in love. I have a single home in the North End, and I'm not going anywhere. I already raised my kids here. I have all three of my kids in my house, and you know, as somebody like a Latina woman myself, I definitely feel that it is an advantage of this district to be a Latina, to be able to be bilingual, to be able to knock on those doors and be able to have a conversation with you know, our families and hear from them what is it that they would like to see happen happening. No, I haven't been endorsed by a particular politician or candidate, but I have been endorsed by many groups and organizations because they do believe in what I believe in, because they see that as a social worker, as a person who's been working very hard in the community, as an activist, somebody that will fight for the rights of workers and for the rights of every resident, for the rights of parents and children. I will make sure that I'm that voice and advocate. I will continue to do so as Cheryl did, and I'm going to make sure that I improve of that. If you're looking for somebody who can cut deals behind closed doors and can have, those little politician talk, I'm not the person, but if you're looking for somebody who will bring change, and if you're looking for somebody that is going to make sure that it's transparent, that I'm going to not, be somebody that is going to lie for anybody or no, I'm going to make sure that all of my families are going to benefit for everything that I do when I go to the State House, as I continue to be doing as a social worker for DCF. I'm an advocate, and I'm going to fight every single day, as I've had for my family. And even after I was, as I continue to be a single mother here in Springfield, I still went back to Springfield College to be able to do my master's. So the resources to be able to get these done, I want to make sure that they're there for our residents.
Yvette, thank you very much. Carlos, do you see being Latino as an advantage or disadvantage in this race?
I think being American is the most advantage that I have in this race. Obviously, I am of from Puerto Rico, and I feel proud of it. We have to understand that diversity is a positive thing. Speaking languages is a positive thing. I speak Spanish. Yo hablo español, I speak English, y parlare un po' italiano, okay? So I think it's important because we see the diversity in the 10th Hampden District, and I think it will bring a benefit if you can speak the different languages to the community directly to the folks. But I think it's more important that this district needs somebody that has the experience, the leadership qualities, and can really relate to the diverse community that we see here in the 10th Hampden District. I've created jobs. We have to be legislators that understand what creating jobs means to this district. I've managed budgets, and I manage people. We have to be legislators that understand what it is to manage people. I have the legislative experience. I have a great relationship with the Western Mass delegation, as well as the state legislators in the State House. I understand from national perspective. I've met with Hillary Clinton and I've met with John McCain from both sides of the equation to look at ways that we can improve the basic principles of life for all our residents, not only here in the 10th Hampden District, but throughout the state and America today, is creating jobs, providing positive results on our education, and also making sure that when we look at crime, it's an issue that's going to be tackled from a community perspective, not only from a police matter, as well as the micro business development needs to be part of the equation, part of the paragraph, as we look at whether it's providing more taxes for our gas or providing a bottle bill. We need to have in that same discussion a little bit of micro business development, because it is the key to economic revitalization of our cities and towns, particularly our urban communities.
Thank you very much, Carlos. Mr. Edwards, do you see race or ethnicity playing a role in this election at all?
Well, I certainly do see it playing a role. I'm obviously, I'm not Latino. My father is West Indian, but I have a multiracial background that extends to the East Indies. My mother, my great-grandmother was a full-blooded Blackfoot Indian, and we were able to trace our family's lineage to a certain ship that docked in South Carolina some 100+ years ago. But what people need to kind of recognize is that we are all descendants of survivors. Whether we came here packed on ships like cordwood, or whether or not we came here through Ellis Island and were segregated because we had lice, or because people thought we had some type of disease because we were coming out of Eastern Europe. And we are all need to recognize that we spend so much time trying to find the things that divide us instead of finding and spending our time concentrating on the things that unite us. The problems in this city are not racial. They are economic more than anything else. All children are valued, and regardless of whether they're black or brown or white, when we start talking about, even in this particular case or this race, about the Latinos as though we need to pander to that community. There are wealthy Latinos who live in the 10th Hampden District, as well as there are poor. But there are also very rich white people, very rich black people, middle-class people on each of those groups. And then what about our Asian neighbors? And what about our African immigrant neighbors and Africans who are American citizens of African descent, not just of the the descendants of the Jim Crow Africans, but I'm talking about those that are escaping the genocide in Africa that have been fortunate to come to America and seek out the American dream. When we start framing these conversations and in comments about the North End versus the South End, or Lower Forest Park or Upper Forest Park, I have a body of work which I'm asking people to look at. I'm the president of 3 nonprofits, but I also sit on the board of Springfield Partners for Community Action, which deals with poor people. I'm involved with the Real Estate Committee and a member of the board of directors of HAP, but I also am a part of Springfield Preservation Trust. I'm a Springfield Rotarian. I am the Chancellor's UMass's Committee on Diversity. I am the vice chairman of the Puerto Rican Cultural Center. I don't have to stand up in front of a camera or at any podium and tell people I'm black. America looks at me and tells me what I am. What I am is a public servant that serves the entire community of the 10th Hampden District, which in fact is probably the most diverse legislative district in all of the state. Because when you look around, when you start talking about the 9th Hampden District or some of the other districts around here, they're either predominantly white or they're predominantly black. But this is one is approximately, it's predominantly Latino, followed very much closely by white, and then a double-digit population of black, and then a very small population of Asians and other minorities. So I do a disservice when I sit here and talk about the fact that I'm black or dark, too dark to be brown, as that is a matter of fact of why I should be a candidate or qualified to be the candidate. I'm a product of the 1960s, and my mother told me as part of that civil rights struggle that we weren't supposed to be looking for special treatment, we were looking for equal treatment. I'm just looking to level the playing field so that we can compete, that we can be judged on the merit of our ideals, that we can be judged by the merit of our effort. I'm asking people who are bad to be held accountable, and I'm asking the system to lock up bad people when they do bad things. I'm looking for those who have gone to school and educated themselves and invested in their future, who know how to invest in money, who can spell compound interest, who know how to invest. I want them to share their intellectual talent. I'm not about trying to take money away from people who have prepared themselves to be in life and acquire material things. One of the great exercises for people to do, regardless of you're black, brown, or white, is to stand on a street corner in a busy traffic area and tell me the day that you see a hearse drive by pulling a U-Haul, because I will totally change my attitude. People acquire wealth, but everything that comes from the soil returns to the soil. Every piece of metal cankers and rust at some point. We need to start to recognize the things that divide us are not what's important. The things that we care about are our children and the people we profess to love. We all want property values to rise. We all want an opportunity to have a decision about how safe our children are and our ability to be able to be employed. Those are the things that we can take and agree on. So let us not focus on whether or not I came from Puerto Rico or the Dominican Republic, or whether or not I came from St. Mary's in Jamaica, or from North Carolina or Georgia, Alabama, or Mississippi. Let's recognize that we are all children of the same God, and if we're not of the persuasion that we believe in a God, then genetically, we're all from the same family tree. So as much as we are divided, we are the same.
Thank you very much. And to our candidates, thank you very much for joining us today and having this conversation. And to our panel, thank you very much as well. We appreciate your contributions. And to the viewers and the readers and everyone who comes across this, we really appreciate you taking the time to listen in on the conversation about the topics that are very important this election season. These 3 candidates will be up on the September 9th ballot for the primary. And more important than who you vote for is the fact that you go out and vote. It's a very important right, one that should not be taken lightly. And take time, 10 minutes out of your day on September 9th, and hit the polls and vote. But thank you very much to everybody. And again, to our candidates for the 10th Hampden District, good luck to all of you, and we will see you on primary day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This forum and others like it throughout the election season will be available online at cbs3springfield.com, MassLive.com, and full coverage in the Republican newspaper and on New England Public Radio. Thanks for watching.